Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1 is prescribed for you for detailed study in Shakespeare paper. Now let us analyze the salient features of Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1. Shakespeare wrote 10 historical plays. King John, Henry VI Part 1, 2 and 3, Richard III, Richard II, Henry IV Part 1 and 2, Henry V and King Henry VIII. The last drama was left incomplete. Shakespeare first wrote King Henry VI, later on he wrote Henry IV. First he wrote Richard III, later on he wrote Richard II. The 10 historical plays of Shakespeare form one epic cycle. A study of one single historical play of Shakespeare is incomplete if taken out of the epic cycle. A historical drama is a creation of a fiction blended with historical facts. It is different from a chronicle play. A chronicle play is a dull, mechanical presentation of historical facts alone that has nothing to do with the imagination. But Shakespeare's historical drama is an imaginative reconstruction of the past historical facts. Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1 is a harmonious blending of fact and fiction, imagination and reality. Shakespeare saw the age of kingship was coming to a close. His 10 historical plays cover a vast cycle of nearly 350 years, beginning from 1200 to 1550. Shakespeare saw the age of kingship was coming to a close, so he wanted to breathe a breath of life to the dead kings. We see the dead kings again living, plotting, fighting, winning and dying. This drama is a dramatic revivification of the past historical facts. Henry IV Part 1 tells us how history was created by one individual. Henry IV Part 1 is a continuation of Richard II. King Henry IV was called Bolingbroke in Richard II. King Henry IV usurped the throne from Richard II. Richard II is the weakest king. He is very weak, feeble in all respects. The present King Henry IV was called Bolingbroke. He usurped the throne from Richard II. That is unfair. So God has punished him. So the theme of this drama is one of nemesis, that is punishment given by God. The theme of the drama is a nemesis, retribution, punishment to King Henry IV for what he did to Richard II. The punishment comes in various forms. The punishment comes to Henry IV in the form of civil war, foreign wars and various factions in his kingdom revolting against him. It is God's wish that King Henry IV has to be in constant worry, has to be in perpetual worry for what he did to Richard II. Above all, he has to be in constant worry for his eldest son, Prince Hal. His eldest son, Prince Hal, is a vagabond. He is a drunkard. He is a prodigal son. King Henry IV makes himself unhappy by comparing the vagabondishness, prodigality and profligacy of his son with the valor, heroism, chivalry of Hotspur. Hotspur is the rebel leader revolting against King Henry IV. King Henry IV often makes himself unhappy by comparing the prodigality of his son, dissoluteness of his son, with the valor and heroism of Hotspur. He tells, "No more in debt to earth than thou, leads ancient lords and bishops to bloody battles and bruising wars." King Henry IV tells his son, "My dear son Prince Hal, you see, Hotspur is not elder to you. He is a man of your age, but he is capable of involving bishops and archbishops in the battlefield." So King Henry IV makes himself unhappy. The general impression that we get is that Prince Hal is a prodigal, often seen in the liquor shops. Prince Hal is drawn between two worlds. On the one hand, he is drawn to a world of honor. He is drawn to a world of the royal court by his father and also by Hotspur. On the other hand, Prince Hal is drawn to a world of evil, drawn to a world of tyrants by Falstaff. But all the time, Prince Hal is conscious of the intrinsic greatness of his family. He says, "And in the closing of some glorious day, I will appear before you to call myself your son." Prince Hal is, though Prince Hal is drawn between the world of evil and the world of honor, he is conscious of his own responsibilities. He is conscious of his intrinsic greatness. In his soliloquy he says, "I am like a bright metal set against a sullen ground, which shines more goodly and attract more eyes than that hath no foil to set it off." He compares himself to a bright metal. If the bright metal is set against a bright background, the bright metal does not shine. Set the bright metal against a dark background, that bright metal shines. So if Prince Hal behaves like a prince all the time, people will not have high regard for him. People may think it is natural that any son of a king would behave only like this. He wants people to think him as a vagabond. Let people think that Prince Hal is a useless man. When time comes, he will prove that he is a real king. That he is very conscious of it. If all the years were playing holidays, to sport would be as tedious as to work. When they seldom come, they wished for come. The meaning is, if we have holidays, too many holidays, that will be very boring, very tedious. We may not know how to spend the time. If we have holidays once in a while, we will be longing for it. We will be longing for the holiday. So also let people think that Prince Hal is a useless man. When time comes, he will prove that he is a real king of England. That he proves in the next drama. But Hotspur, he shines very resplendently in the first part of the drama. He is known for honor, heroism, valor and chivalry. He longs for honor. I'll pluck the honor from the pale-faced moon, or jump into the bottom of the ocean and pluck the honor by the locks. Send danger from east to west. Let honor cross from north to south. Let them grapple. Hotspur is ready to risk his life. He is not bothered of his life. He is ready to risk his life, but he wants honor. This is the impression that we get. But that is not 100% true. In the first part of the drama, it is Hotspur who shines resplendently. In the second part, it is Prince Hal who shines. This Prince Hal later on proves to be the greatest king of England. Shakespeare for this drama drew materials from Hallish Chronicle, S.T. Wood Stow's Chronicle, Daniel's Civil War, and Hall's The Union of the Two Noble and Illuster families of Lancaster and York. It is from these historical sources Shakespeare drew materials for his Henry IV Part 1, but he deviates from historical fact. According to historical fact, when the action took place, Hotspur was 39, age of King Henry IV was 37, Prince Hal was only 16. But Shakespeare has portrayed Hotspur and Prince Hal as contemporaries, as men of same age. He purposely deviates from the historical veracity. It has got a purpose. We often compare people of the same age. We do not compare the 6-year-old boy with a 16-year young man. To make the theme of nemesis very effective, Shakespeare has deviated from historical fact so that King Henry IV should suffer by comparing the dissoluteness of his son with the honor and courage of Hotspur. It is for this he deviates from historical fact. In the historical plays of Shakespeare, even the bishops and archbishops, they urge the kings to wage wars. The divine interthreads the earthly. His tragedies are concerned with what a man is rather than what he does. But Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 1 or other historical plays, they tell us how a man may rise and fall in the material world. Shakespeare's historical plays, they speak of material advancements and material failures. They tell us what a man does rather than what he is. The problem Henry IV Part 1 deals is not the problem of life and death. The issue it analyzes is not the baffling issue. Whereas Shakespeare's tragedies, they deal with a baffling problem of life and death. His historical plays are satisfied with only the rise of man and the fall of how a man may rise and fall in the material world. I told you, a study of a single drama, single historical play of Shakespeare is incomplete if taken out of the epic cycle. But this drama has a unique completeness, a unique stature of its own. This drama ends with the fulfillment of one of the two promises made by Prince Hal at the beginning of the drama. At the beginning of the drama, Prince Hal makes two promises. One is he will defeat Hotspur in a battlefield. Another promise is he will reject Falstaff when occasion demands. This drama ends with the fulfillment of the first promise, namely his vindication in the eyes of the world by defeating Hotspur. It is a Prince Hal whom we think a mere prodigal, a mere vagabond, who kills Hotspur in the Battle of Shrewsbury. Hotspur's dying words are these: I can brook the loss of this brittle life, I can brook the loss of this brittle life, than all the proud titles thou hast won of me. These are the last dying words of Hotspur. The impression that we have formed in our mind is Hotspur is inconquerable. Such Hotspur is killed by Prince Hal. Hotspur says that he is not afraid that he is dying. He is not bothered about death. I can brook the loss of this brittle life. I am not bothered about this life. But what worries me now is, Prince Hall, by killing me, you are not only taking away my life, you are taking away all the honor, heroism, valor, chivalry, courage which I earned so far. All these days, I was known for honor, valor, heroism, chivalry. By killing me, you are taking away all that I earned so far. Hereafter people will say that prodigal, that vagabond killed Hotspur. That very thought pricks me. So this drama ends with the fulfillment of one of the two promises made by Prince Hall at the beginning of the drama. His second promise, namely his rejection of Falstaff, is completed in Henry IV Part 2. It is this unique structure, a unique completeness, which makes Henry IV Part 1 and Part 2 superior to other historical plays of Shakespeare. Our discussion on Henry IV will be incomplete without a reference to John Falstaff. John Falstaff is one of the greatest comic creations of Shakespeare. He is also one of the complex creations of Shakespeare. He is an enigmatic personality. He is an enigma. His character is as complex as the character of Hamlet. Professor Dover Wilson has given a new interpretation of his character. Shakespeare had a necessity to create a character like John Falstaff. John Falstaff is out and out 100% Shakespeare's own creation. Why did Shakespeare create a character like Falstaff? Number one, Shakespeare had to find an answer for the profligacy, for the waywardness, for the dissoluteness of Prince Hall. Why did a king of a great king, King Henry IV is the greatest king, why did a son of a great king behave like a prodigal? Why was he a drunkard? He had to find an answer. Our immediate answer for the dissoluteness, for the vagabondishness of Prince Hall is his close friend, his companionship and friendships in his youthful days. So Falstaff is the answer for the waywardness, for the dissoluteness of Prince Hall. One reason why he created John Falstaff. Another reason is, it is through John Falstaff that Shakespeare tells us of the highway robberies of England, given to eating, drinking, merrymaking of all sorts. Any epic reflects the social aspects of the age. This drama, Henry IV Part 1, also reflects the social aspects of England. This also is called an epic because it reflects the social aspects through John Falstaff. So John Falstaff lends an epic quality to the drama. These are two main reasons why Shakespeare created John Falstaff. He is a man of paradoxes, man of incongruities. He is the most sensual of all men, but not a sensualist. He tells transparent lies, but he is not a liar. He is the most sensual of all men, but not a sensualist. He brags too much. He speaks too much about himself. He brags too much, but not a braggart. Maurice Morgan has written an essay on John Falstaff. In his essay on the character of John Falstaff, he speaks of the incongruities in him. John Falstaff is at once young and old, very weak in principle, but strong by resolute, a coward in appearance, but brave in reality. He is a soldier without honor. He is a knight without any dignity. He is a man of all the incongruities. But today, we remember John Falstaff as a greatest comic figure. He is a greatest comic muse. He creates laughter not for any benefit. He creates laughter, he wants others to laugh at him. He is not afraid of telling transparent lies, because he can invent 100 lies to maintain one lie. See, there is one Gad's Hill robbery. In the Gad's Hill robbery, Prince Hall, John Falstaff and others, they plan to rob the merchants on the way. The last minute they all escape, Prince Hall also escapes, and John Falstaff is seen in the pitch dark. Prince Hall, without informing his friend, goes to the spot to observe what his friend does. On seeing a figure, that Falstaff ran away from the spot. But next day he tells Prince Hall, Prince Hall, yesterday we robbed precious stones, a lot of pounds, all that. Prince Hall exposes, come on, show me all that. Falstaff says 100 men came, not 100, 200 men, not 200, 300 men, not 300, 400 men came and carried everything from me. He knows he is telling a lie, but yet he tells lies for amusement. His lies are harmless amusements to the audience. In the liquor shop, he is a drunkard. John Falstaff is a drunkard, seen all the time in the liquor shop. He borrowed heavily from that lady, that at one stage that lady refuses to lend him anything. He tells a lie. He tells that lady that Prince Hall owes me 1,000 pounds. It so happened that Prince Hall appears. That lady also mercilessly exposes him. Prince Hall asks John Falstaff, Falstaff, why do you say such lies? When did I borrow 1,000 rupees? Falstaff says, Prince Hall, wait. Prince Hall, do you love me or no? Prince Hall says, you are my friend, I love you, no, what is the doubt in it? What man? You are a son of a great king. You accept that you love me. That means, do you think that your love is equal to 1,000 pounds? Your love is equal to million pounds. What Prince Hall? Thou owest me thy love. It is worth a million. Your love is equal not to 1,000 pounds, it is equal to billion pounds, which means you got to give me million pounds. He creates laughter, that is, he finds pleasure in creating laughter. In the battlefield, he has the sword with him, that sheath. That Prince Hall wants a sheath from him, he refuses to give the sheath. He says he wants to fight with Hotspur. Prince Hall says that Hotspur is dead. If Hotspur is dead, you don't need a dagger. If Hotspur is alive, I have to fight with Hotspur. Prince Hall literally snatches the sheath. When Prince Hall opens the sheath, there is no sword or any dagger, there is wine bottle and nothing else. Falstaff tells Prince Hall that what is honor? Honor is a mere word. I don't want any honor at all. Can honor give leg to a man? No. Can honor give hand to a man? No. Has it the skill in surgery? No. Then what is honor? Honor is a mere word. What is a mere word? It is only air. So, he equates this honor to mere air. In the Battle of Shrewsbury, that he feigns death. He saw Douglas, a great warrior. He is afraid of his life. He feigns death. Prince Hall saw the dead body of a Falstaff. He thought that Falstaff is really dead. Within a few minutes, he saw the Falstaff before him. What, Baba? I saw your dead body. How is it that you are alive? That Falstaff says that he just now killed Hotspur. Prince Hall mercilessly exposes him. Falstaff, why do you tell such lies? I killed Hotspur just now. Why do you say that you killed Hotspur? No, Prince Hall. You saw my dead body. Similarly, you saw only the dead body of Hotspur. Hotspur did not die. I pretended to have died. Hotspur also pretended to have died. He jumped. I jumped. We both fought and they killed Hotspur. The point is, he creates laughter. His laughter is only a harmless amusement. Another point that has come in for discussion is his cowardice. Is John Falstaff really a coward? Much has been said about his cowardice. John Falstaff is as courageous as Hotspur. He values honor as much as Hotspur does. But John Falstaff will not go into the perils to pluck the honor, because It is an age in which heroism, chivalry were not at all rewarded. Hotspur is known for courage and honor. What is the reward that he gets? Only death. It is an age in which treachery, cunningness alone brought fame or brought value to a man. King Henry IV usurped the throne. He is alive, he enjoys power. So he will not go into the perils to pluck the honor or chivalry. That is why he believes in principle, discretion is the better part of valor. The point that is come in for controversy and discussion is his cowardice. Is he really a coward? He is not really a coward. Number one, in the Battle of Shrewsbury, he faints death because he is overmatched with Douglas. Secondly, he believes in the concept that discretion is the better part of valor. In another place where he behaves like a coward is in Mr. Squeakley's inn. He saw the sheriff, he hides himself behind the screen. That shows his cowardice. The point is, it is Prince Hall who wants him to hide behind the screen. John Falstaff hides not because he is a coward, but because Prince Hall wants him to do so. Romantic critics have gone to the extent of calling him the hero of the drama. No doubt, he suffers degradation in Henry IV Part 2. Prince Hall does not hate him as long as he is Prince Hall. It is when he becomes Henry V, he rejects John Falstaff. Readers do not reject him. Even Shakespeare does not reject him. He hypnotizes the whole world by his quibbles and wits. He amuses us by his appearance, by his fatness. He intoxicates us with his wine of wit and wisdom. He astounds us by his arguments. The whole world has become a victim, even as the greatest king of England was a victim to such charms, hypnotizing charms in his youthful days. He is a man of infinite variety. Neither age nor custom wither away his charms. His memory grows even younger.